We'll get through we'll just, as people come in, they'll join in. All right, so welcome to the April Equity Advisory Group for the Interstate Bridge. My name is Dr. Roberta Suzette Hunt. My pronouns are she and they, and I am the facilitator for this group. Next slide. Closed captions are in English and Spanish. English closed captions are available within Zoom and YouTube. Users can follow this link to view both English and Spanish captions in a separate browser window. Go to ibr.news/captions. So reminders, we encourage EAG members to turn on your video. Please say your name when you begin to speak. And if you experience technical difficulties, please contact program staff at 360-329-6744. Public input instructions. There will be an opportunity to provide brief public input later in the meeting today. To submit input after the meeting, email comments to info@interstatebridge.org with EAG Public Comment in the subject line. Call 888-503-6735 and state EAG Public Comment in your message. Next slide. Today's agenda, we begin with an icebreaker. We'll have our program administrator update, equity updates. We'll have a community engagement discussion, the CBAG updates, transit station design discussion, public comment, and closeout. So for our icebreaker, your name and pronouns, affiliation. If you could have a superpower for a day, what would it be and how would you use it? So superpower for a day, what would you be and how would you use it? Well, I know how I would start. Roberta Suzette Hunt, she, they. I would have the ability to heal quickly. And I would use it to get rid of some of my autoimmune issues. Vicky?
Vicky Nakashima, and I use she, her. I came up with this at the last minute, but I decided I would be a big gust of wind and I would blow away all the yellow pollen in East Vancouver.
Awesome. How about you, Chandra?
Hi. Chandra Washington with C-Tran, she, her, hers pronouns. And what would I do? What would I be? I feel like I'm always late to things, so maybe I would just be a very fast moving thing. Maybe I'd be like the wind. I'd move like the wind. How about that?
Awesome. How about you, Jim?
Yeah, as a kid, I've always dreamed of flying without an airplane, of course. So that would be something that I would like to do or like to have as a superpower. How would I use it? Well, I was also a fan of Superman comic books. So he was always looking out for things that were troublesome in society and fixing them. And not that I would also want, the strength of Superman, but just being able to try to do good in the world and having the ability to move fast enough to have a large area of impact.
Nice. John Gardner, you took yourself off. So what do you got?
Oh, the dangers of the video. John Gardner, he, him, TriMet. Let's see. It's interesting. I thought about this earlier today when I saw the stuff. And has anyone seen the movie Limitless? So, as much as I want to fly or be stronger, the idea to use the human brain to its full capacity and really be super smart and write out all the solutions to many of the world's problems, and apparently be able to type super fast too, and just release all that on free social media about energy and saving the world and all that. I would love that super intelligence to really solve some problems, including your what you mentioned, Roberta, in terms of some health stuff. Like, wouldn't that be nice? Just for a day.
Just for a day.
That would be my take. But speaking of superheroes, I'll toss it over to John L. Bell.
Oh.
That's very I'll say an overstatement, but I appreciate that. My good friend John Gardner. I would love to have the power of going back in time. And I think if I were to do that, I would spend time asking my grandmother, who passed away almost 20 years ago, a number of questions, as well as spend some time with civil rights leaders. Like, I would love to do a podcast with like Martin Luther King, for example.
Cool. All right, Sabrina.
Hi, everyone. Sabrina Owens-Wilson. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm the Diversity and Inclusion Director at Metro. The only thing that came to mind, which is not really a superpower, is I'd love to be able to swim, which I recognize is not a superpower, but the idea of getting in the water without fear and being able to see and enjoying myself, it looks lovely. I hope to do that one day.
Yes. How about you, Greg?
So I looked at this from two perspectives. First, my selfish, self-interested perspective. I take on the powers of King Midas. Everybody remembers that story. Everything he touched turned to gold. So I'd have it for a day, turn a number of things to gold, and then distribute some wealth around. But then from a more egalitarian standpoint, I like the idea of being super smart. I'm a comic book guy. There used to be a guy in the Superman comics, Jim will remember, Brainiac. And he was just super smart, and I would solve some of the issues of the world, whether it's war, global warming, whatever. I'd think through the solutions, and then probably nobody would listen. So, but then I'd have my stack of gold. So I also like Sabrina's, because I can't swim either, and I would love to be able to swim, but that's a thing.
Maybe the superpower is like relieving yourself of a fear. Like, you could just eliminate a fear, and then we could jump in the water and see what that's like, Greg.
Yeah, I like that.
I'm right there with you guys. I can't swim either. Maybe we need to take a joint swim class or something.
Guys, you know we're reinforcing a stereotype.
Yeah, I
can swim.
As we're here at the Equity Advisory Group meeting, we're reinforcing on an inequitable stereotype that Black people can swim. Yes, I cannot swim. It is true. So
I cannot swim.
But I'm always on the boat.
Okay, I can swim.
Like an oxymoron. You know?
Okay, remember,
This is hilarious.
I was on a boat yesterday too, but the numbers are tilting toward folks that can swim. So we didn't do any damage.
I'm Asian and I can't swim. I sink to the bottom.
Yeah. Okay. we're moving off of swimming. And public service announcement. It's a really good thing to learn for everyone. Okay. So cool.
I can barely swim.
Sorry, Roberta.
I'm Soko, he, him, his pronouns, with the Pacific Islander Asian Family Center, part of the Immigrant Refugee Community Organization. If I could have a superpower for the day, it would be, well, I just watched Doctor Strange recently. And I realized he doesn't really have a superpower other than he thinks a lot and he does a lot of like reading. So that'd be fun power for the day, just to think a lot and read and solve problems like he does. Or it seems like he gets thrown a lot of problems and doesn't really solve it. I'll pass it to, just to help you out, Dr. Hunt, Nikki.
Okay, thank you. Hi, everyone. Nikki Chen, Business Partner, Office of Equity and Inclusion, City of Vancouver. And if I was to have a superpower, it would be the ability to mindfully affect people's emotions. It's kind of a sneaky one, but my son and I talk about this all the time. And so I've had time to figure out what and why I would use that. And a lot of it is to be the ability to maybe take away depression, anxiety, and different things like that, but do it mindfully because some of that is survival skills and fight or flight response. So Dr. Hunt, I'll let you decide. There's so many people on here.
Alicia.
Good evening, Alicia Sojourner, pronouns them, they, she, hers. City of Vancouver, Office of Equity and Inclusion. And this feels like an everyday conversation in our household as I am blurred. And so since I only have it for a day, it would be time manipulation. So I can have it for more than a day. And then I would manipulate time in order to find cures for different illnesses and go back or stop bullets from killing certain people or all people maybe. Just kind of depends, but I would use manipulation of time, which would not be manipulation. It would just be me navigating time. With that, I don't know if we've heard from Steve yet.
No.
Go for
Hi,
it.
everybody. I'm Steve Katko. I'm the IBR Civil Design Lead. I'm new. This is my first meeting with you all today. Normally, I think it's Matt Demmel who sits in. He had a conflict today, so I am sitting in for him to cover the engineering side of questions that come up. He, him are my pronouns. I was also going to say for my superhero strength, the ability to control time. I was going to be a little bit more selfish, though, just to be able to slow down the fun things of life and speed up the bad things of life. So certainly slow down the weekends, the vacations, the family time, and then no offense, Greg, but maybe speed up the workday a little bit just to get through it. But I'm happy to be here tonight. So looking forward to the rest of the discussion. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Yamaya.
Okay, people said already, Alicia and John said what I wanted. I've always toyed with the idea of manipulating time, just because I feel that I would like to prevent accidents too, and sleeping a little more since I was little. I've always been in a lot of activities, swimming being one of them. So I would like to have more time with the people that I love, but I was obsessed with Limitless, that movie. And for one day, I would like to be the smartest person in the world. And just that, you keep that, you make plans for the future and you keep that, and you are 3 steps ahead. That idea, you can do a lot of good with that. So that will be Demaya, she, her pronouns. I'm with the equity team, IBR. Thank you.
Awesome. Awesome. How about you, Emily?
Hi, everyone. Emily Thomas Peralta. I'm with the IBR equity team as well as the community benefits team and she, her pronouns. And so kind of like Greg, I thought of my more like selfish one first. It was teleportation because I'm impatient, but then I realized that's a terrible thing to say at a transportation like focused meeting, right? So, but my other power coming from my heart would be telepathy. I don't really want to hear everybody's thoughts, just my daughter. My daughter is on the autism spectrum and then very limited verbally. And I just would love to like get a picture into what her mind looks like, because I'm sure it's just amazing. And I would love to see that more clearly and her to understand me more clearly. So that would be my choice.
Yeah. Yeah. Malin.
Hi, Malin Clements, he, him, the architecture lead for the stations. And obviously the trick part of this question is just for a day. And that makes it so much more complicated. But rather than just take on the whole idea of solving the world's problems, which is just overwhelming, I think it would have something to do with something that would create a memory that would last beyond the day. And so probably some time travel, either backwards or forwards, take some thought to see what would be the memory that would last beyond that.
Nice. Pat.
Sorry, I'm having some problems with my computer today, but thank you. I had a hard time thinking of that one too. If I had a superpower, I would want to take away people's. Can you hear me? Okay, I would.
Yeah,
I would want to do a superpower that would last from this day forward, which would take away racism, and so that everyone would keep their colors, keep their ethnicity, but you would never be able to think about people as different. Or you see their difference, but not in racial ways.
Yeah. Thank you. Meg.
Hi, all. Meg Johnson, she, her pronouns, private citizen in Clark County. My special superpower would definitely be teleportation. I would love to go lots of different places all in one day, just so I could travel and also not have like a massive carbon footprint, I assume, for traveling with teleportation, right? So that's mine for sure.
I love that. Karen.
Good evening, everyone. Karen Urata, IBR Transit Design, she, her pronouns. I love everyone's superpowers. I think for me, the superpower I would like to have is the ability for everyone to understand everyone else a little bit better, so that we can see through our differences and understand someone else's point of view a little better in order to work together. And I'm not necessarily talking about the IBR program, I just mean life in general. And hopefully we can, together as citizens of the earth, reach a better understanding of everyone else and be able to work together towards whatever common goal it is. Thank you.
Yeah. Shannon.
Thank you. And my apologies, I'm in transit, so I'm on my phone and off camera today. But Shannon Singleton, she and her pronouns. I am the community benefits lead for the IBR program. And I would decommodify housing and make it so that people actually could get some affordability. And if we're going to go ahead and have superpowers, I would be able to manifest and actually create housing, because I just think homelessness is such a huge waste of our time, and we can actually support people once they're inside. So I'd like to flip that whole problem right on its head.
I'm excited for this world. This is very exciting. Salome.
Hi, everyone. Salome or Salome. I use she, her pronouns. I am on the IBR team as a community engagement lead. And if I had a superpower, this is a really hard question for me. I really love comics and I have a whole comic collection in my house. So I know a lot about powers. I would have to say that I'll have to model after one of my favorite superheroes. And I would like to have Batman's money for a day. Like that would be all I need, because then that power would just continue on after the day is over, because it's just so much money. And yeah, I'd end up ironically probably buying comics too. So
I'm into it. I am into this one. All right, so let's have the program administrator update. All right, over to you, Greg.
Well, good. It was the evening yet? Well, close to evening. So thanks everybody for joining us. Your assignment now is to watch an episode of the old Twilight Zone to see how your wishes for superpowers never work out well. So, so thanks for having me. And let's talk about what's been going on with the program. So one of the key things that's upcoming is how the IBR Bridge program is going to be told. So the commissions from each state in January signed an intergovernmental agreement that has set up a subcommittee that will recommend rates for tolling the bridge. Now, everyone understood what happened when the governor of Oregon said Oregon is out of the business of tolling. So it doesn't have a large impact on the program because she is supportive of the bridge tolling to help pay for the bridge. But the commissions in each state control the tolling, so they're going to get together to look at hours of operation, the rates for time of day and any truck multipliers, as well as escalation to handle future inflationary costs for tolling that will match what's happening in the economy. This group is also going to look at exemptions and discounts to apply. We know that there is a strong desire on each side of the river to look at low income discounts for tolling, but also exemptions. We've heard from tribal governments about the potential for having exemptions. So these are conversations that this group will be having, and they will determine the final policy that will go forward. IBR's role is to give them the data and do any necessary research that will be happening for tolling going forward. So the other thing, this group is going to meet for about the next 6 to 8 months and hopefully have some direction on what all of these things will look like for that time period. Their next meeting, they've met, I believe, one time or maybe twice already. And so their next meeting that's is also open to the public will be April 19th, 2024. So let's go to the next slide, please. That was my last slide. Well, I have a couple of other comments that I'd like for the team to understand. We are, the team is working very hard on getting us to a draft supplemental document. So we're working with our federal partners. So that's an ongoing conversation. The timeline has been altered somewhat, and we're hoping to get a better understanding of that key milestone, because that has to happen before we can get into some of the other key elements of this program. So we're working hard with FTA, Federal Transit Administration, and Federal Highway Administration on how we can make this the best document that suits the needs of not only the program, but of the community as we move forward. So that work is going on. We're still designing and doing good things and looking at urban design elements. So you're going to see some of the things regarding station design as that moves forward. But the team is tremendously busy. I just came back from an invite to Chicago to represent the program and talking to DBEs and how DBEs can be more effective from an owner standpoint. So very good conversation as we had owners from the Chicago Toll Authority as well as the Indianapolis Airport Authority. So good conversations. Our program is being recognized nationally for some of the leadership that's being shown. This group in itself is one of those key innovations that folks are looking at how to do big programs and projects differently and better. So having an equity advisory group is one of those best practices. So with that, I will answer any questions that anyone may have.
Vicky.
So I'm curious whether they can administer, or if they do administer, toll discounts in conjunction with public transit. And maybe if you buy a reduction permit, you get free public transit for a certain number of rides to encourage people to use that as an option. I mean, not that it would be priced in necessarily, but sometimes the reasons you give a discount are similar because of income or disability or, and I guess.
That's a very interesting concept. And once again, in looking at how we can encourage less impactful travel modes, that sounds like that might be a good way to do it. So if this group wants to gather ideas that can get forwarded to the commissions, our team will be happy to be that funnel of taking ideas and taking them to the commissions for their considerations. But we've got to be creative in how we approach tolling. It's one of the most unpopular things that you can do, but it also has some benefits that could accrue to folks who have not seen benefits from just the roadway itself. So I'd be happy to be the conduit to take any comments from this group and channel those towards that tolling subcommittee.
Thank you.
All right, you guys seem very, very satisfied and happy tonight with your superpowers. So watch a couple episodes of Twilight Zone and let that be a cautionary tale. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you, Greg. All right, I'm going to turn over to Yamaya for the equity update.
Thank you, Dr. Hunt, and thank you, Greg. And if anyone wants to send your questions, comments about tolling, feel free to do so to the EAG admin email where you get all the emails, and I'll make sure that the right people get it, so we can take into consideration all your thoughts. So thank you. Yes, so today we would like to share with you, as many of you know, during January, we were doing a series of individual interviews and to ask you how you were doing, how do your experience so far in the EAG. Some of you have been in this group since 2021, some of you are newer, and we just wanted to get some feedback from you in a more individualized form. And we wanted to hear from you also what things were working, where things are not working, and what could we do better. So your involvement in EAG and what you're getting from it, it was what you were looking for, and it's still that. So we did a series of interviews in January, and that's why we didn't have a meeting in January. And some of you were unable to do those interviews. So today we want to share with you some of the findings and hear from you also. See if this is aligned with how you're feeling, or if you have any additional feedback that you would like to like us to take into consideration to move forward for the rest of this year, and see how we can better work together. So one of the things that we've heard from you is that you are very interested in perhaps you feel that sometimes, since we started meeting virtually because it was during COVID times, but now times have changed, you feel that now it will be a good time to maybe revisit doing hybrid meetings or in-person meetings, maybe once a quarter, just so you have the ability to connect with one another in other spaces and talk, and to be able to really have that space to learn from what each other is doing. Another thing that we've heard from you was that you're really interested. Oh, let me see. I'm running the slides, so sorry. Here we go. Another thing that we've heard from you is that you're interested, many of you mentioned that you're interested in learning how we are involving DBEs, not only in diversity in contract awards, but also in supplying the DBEs and the suppliers that we use for the program internally. Some of you express interest in knowing what type of training and support we're offering to our DBEs to ensure great participation in the program, and that you really wanted to see that we are being very supportive of our local communities internally and externally as a program. And another things that you show great enthusiasm, and many of you mentioned and told me that you really were excited about workforce development and what the program is doing on that front, workforce equity, and that you would like more regular updates and be able to share with other members what are they doing and what in terms of workforce equity within your own work, and be able to share maybe ideas and bounce from one another and just to learn what is happening. So we wanted to let you know that we heard you, and based on that and the recommendations that we heard from you, which is organize several of you, I will say 90% of the people that I talked to said that you really want more in-person events near the project site. You really want to be able to be in the bridge, to feel that connection to the bridge, and at least to be able to do events in a place where the bridge is visible. So that's a possibility that we share with leadership, and they're very open that we can discuss further to see if we move to hybrid meetings, if that's something that you all want and that will better work for you. And the other possibility of implementing we're going to be sharing a lot of what we're doing in terms of involvement, not only in workforce equity, but also with DBEs and how we're involving suppliers and DBEs and type of trainings that we've been doing to make sure that we're really being mindful of our local community and the possibility of creating jobs in an equitable way. So based on this, one of the things we wanted to ask you further, for those of you who were unable to do the individual interviews, and even if you were able and there is something else to add, based on these insights and findings, are there any additional recommendations that do you have for us today that you would like us to take into account? And I'll just ask you a few questions so you can think about them. Are there aspects of the EAG that you find the most engaging? Or topics that you would like to discuss that we haven't touched on yet?
Sabrina?
Sabrina with Metro. I'm one of the folks that was not able to connect with you all. So sorry about that. I think that something that's just continued to be important to this group is continuing to come back to the equity framework. And so for that to continue to be kind of a grounding piece of how we're doing this work and the conversations that we have, I think will continue to be important. And those regular updates on how it's being applied to the different parts of the project, I think will be important. I agree with the other things that folks raised. Thank you.
Thank you. That's a great point. Thank you so much, Sabrina, for that. We'll definitely take that into account. Do you have any recommendations for how to make these meetings more accessible for EAG participation?
Well, Vicky has her hand up.
Well, my comment was more about a topic that might for future consideration. You know, I was at a meeting today, again, in Lake Oswego with Mary's Woods. I'm on the board of a senior living facility, and we were talking about the bridge of the IBR. And the comment came up about the fear people have of safety on the MAX train. And that's one reason I joined the committee, because I kept hearing from people over here about, gosh, if they build that bridge, they're going to put a light rail on it and the platforms won't be safe. And people have this image that that public transit will bring in crime, and it just is at the base of that is a racist kind of undercurrent that I feel exists, and that you still hear it. So I'm wondering if there's a way to build that in, and I'm not sure, I can't say that you can prove that it's safe, but maybe what best practices are being used in terms of managing public safety on transit or on new projects, and how that's factored into planning or design. I don't know how that would work. It's not an area I'm necessarily knowledgeable about, but just a thought.
So if I could jump in, and the folks at TriMet who are a part of this team, they recognize some of the challenges that exist on light rail systems across the country. You know, the systems are safe. They have proven to be over a number of years much safer than getting into a car and driving. Some of the carnage that you see on highways are dwarf the numbers that you will see on a light rail system. But it creates this image of unsafe. So we have been talking with TriMet leadership, and they are tackling this issue head on by putting additional presence on trains to make sure that they have eyes and ears throughout their system. So we're looking forward to the collaboration between TriMet and CTRAN to make sure that these myths about safety or the lack thereof of safety on mass transit are exploded, and that folks will know that we will have a safe way to travel through the corridor that doesn't involve getting into a motor vehicle. So it's a question that comes up consistently. And once again, we will be working with the providers of service to make sure that they understand, or they can get their side of the story of what they are doing to address any concerns about safety on their systems.
Thank you, Greg. John? Thank you, Vicky, for that recommendation.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great comment, both Vicky and then Greg's response. And I mean, we have a great safety security team. We've worked with the community for years to understand sort of how to help folks feel safer. What we do know, and we ask this question to tens of thousands of riders, is do they feel safe? And our ridership feels way safer than folks who don't ride public transit, right? Which you would think it would be the opposite, right? But people who actually ride the system feel safe. So I do think you're right, Vicky, with what are the undertones, but Greg's right as well. As we get closer to this landmark event, like how do we have a campaign to let people understand what's really happening and continue to staff up and put folks on the train, and understand how different people feel safe in public spaces, and different methods and presence to help folks feel safer. So I think this is an opportunity. Long before I came to TriMet, safety has been the top 2 or 3 reasons why folks don't ride, and that's just a perception thing. But how do we educate people and help them feel welcome and safe no matter where they're coming from? And I think that's not just for this project, but a challenge for public transit or in any public space, really. But Greg's right, over 1 million rides a week, folks, and things generally are safe on the system. And so as we look at getting back to 70 million rides next year, we feel really confident that we can continue to make the system feel safe, especially everyone coming from all walks of life feeling safe on that system.
So cool.
Going back to the initial question of reviewing the equity framework, I think the ways that it lays out the measurable and actionable outcomes is really important. So when we do tackle those large issues of like, how does light rail impact the future plans, or how does pedestrian traffic impact, the future plans themselves, or biking across the future bridge, all those can be identifiable so that way we can respond as a collective. And to that point, I think, those specific action plans that are laid out in the memo are really great.
Vicky, I saw you were trying to speak.
Well, I just, it may be helpful for me and others on the committee to be armed with some of those facts. I mean, I feel it's safe, but I think the image is the perception, Greg, is what we're kind of dealing with. And to counter that, we kind of have to deal with how people feel about the safety, and then what are the facts that back that up. And
Yeah,
sometimes we think we believe it's safe, but we don't know how to prove it.
it's a good point, Vicky. Perception can become reality. So having campaigns around what's actually happening, and like you said, John, if there are how many millions of rides a year that go incident free, then we need to tell that story. Um, if folks if they look at some of the road rage incidents that happen on freeways, some of the crashes that happen on freeways that kill multiples of people every year, there are trade-offs, and folks need to understand what those trade-offs are and what they're about. So, but it's a good question to bring to the table.
And I think that's a good point. And even though it's not the conversation, I think we've done a lot to empower folks on the committee with talking points about how the bridge can be an equitable project. But you're right, like, or how it could be a decarbonizing project. But I think you're right, like giving folks empowered with information about how could it make the corridor more safe, and how could it make travelers safer? How many how collisions are occurring in that spanway, and what can transit do to sort of reduce that? And how many issues of violence are occurring in unlit corridors in this region? And so, and what happens when you put people in corridors and mixed use spaces? So I'll talk to the team about it, Greg, because I know there are plenty of communities that are way ahead of us on this in terms of this conversation, and we can leverage that, and it can inform how we build out. So I think it's a good point that Vicky mentions, but you're right, there is a perception issue, and I do think it ties back to race. But regardless, I think sometimes we can both tell a better story and show the facts. So thanks for that opportunity.
Nikki.
Hi, yes. I'm someone that was not interviewed, so I'm grateful for the opportunity to come back around and be heard. I'm very appreciative of that. I had a conversation with someone recently that they said to me, the building of this bridge feels like it's going to be the downfall of Portland because everyone's going to be able to get to the other side. And I felt like that was a very intense conversation, and I did not feel equipped with the tools to ensure that this bridge was going to benefit them or their community that they were concerned about. So I will do my due diligence of rereading all the information that has already been shared, but I also think brought to my mind of, without sounding cheesy, because I don't know a better way to say it, of marketing strategy around like building together, coming together, growing together, so that it doesn't feel like Portland versus Vancouver or Washington versus Oregon, that it's a concept of intentional growth together. Once again, I'm sorry if it sounds cheesy. I don't know what another way to put it, but yeah. And then earlier there was a question of something I wish I could have contributed that I didn't hear, or maybe I did hear it and maybe I didn't hear it the way I assumed, is how we're reaching back to the youth. I have children in high school, and their concept is that's going to be my bridge when I start going to work or paying a toll and doing these things. And so how are we being intentional and making sure they're aware, a part of, and included in all of the processes moving forward?
So a couple of things, and Nikki, great questions. So let me tackle the second question first. We have been reaching out to the youth community in very positive ways. We've hosted several youth press conferences where we had high school journalism students as well as local college journalism students come and take a tour of the bridge, because I agree with you 100%. It's that generation that's going to live with this bridge for their lifespan, their children's lifespans. So having their voice be amplified in this is part of our equity strategy. We identified youth as one of those categories that we need to focus on. So we are doing, we're reaching out to the high schools and making sure that they know about the job opportunities, making sure they know how to make their voice heard during the public comment period, because there is no age limit on who can comment on the document we put out. So we are trying to make sure that that demographic is being reflected in our actions. Regarding the first comment, bridges have, throughout their history, have actually knit people together. There are natural resources like a river, like ravines, that bridges have brought people together. And for folks to have the impression that this bridge is going to harm Portland, I think that folks need to look at it differently, that this bridge is going to help strengthen this as a region, rather than people look at it as this side of the river versus that side of the river. So I think some of the things, some of the assets that will be built as part of this, I think is going to help cement this relation, even though different states, different cities separated by a river, that this is one region. When people outside of this area, when they talk about Vancouver, they immediately think of Vancouver, Canada. And they think of Portland as one region. So we need to make sure that folks are not afraid of what the future holds. This bridge is going to be a positive for this region. It's going to be not only a physical connection, but a economic lifeline for this region to continue to grow. So you need to have talking points around those type of things to make sure folks understand the positives that are coming out of this endeavor.
Yeah, I do want to add a detail that this is someone born and raised and born in Portland, raised in Vancouver. So it's someone native, unlike myself. So I was even more surprised to hear that from a local. Yeah. Just FYI.
Understood.
Thank you, everyone. And these are all very insightful and important feedback that we're getting, and we're gathering this and we're taking it very seriously. And thank you, Greg, for addressing the answers, and everyone for your feedback. One of the things that we are thinking now with this feedback is, how do we make it into a way that is tangible? We're hearing you, and it's important, and we are figuring it out. We're gonna go back to our different teams and talk it through, and talk it with leadership, and see how we can do. Perhaps we need to do talking points. Perhaps we need to do a strategy that could help you out. Go back to your communities in a way that you can communicate easily to them from your perspective, from what you're doing here, and you're learning from these advisory boards, and we perhaps can help with that. So we're taking this very seriously. I truly appreciate your thoughtfulness in all of this, and your involvement. I know it's time commitment, it's energy, it's a space, and it's extremely valuable to have such diversity of people in this team with all the experiences that you bring to the table. So I truly appreciate that. Are there
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
I don't have a.
Pat, go
okay,
ahead.
I'm sorry, my camera's not working.
Yes.
But when you were talking about that, I wanted to come back to when we're talking about opportunity. We talk a lot about the construction opportunity. What other employment opportunities are there when we're talking about the disabled community and the community at large? So, and I just think that that's a good thing for us to promote, because I think there is more than just workforce there, or construction is what I'm saying.
So, Pat, there part of the economic impact study that we did does look at those secondary and tertiary spinoff opportunities that this will bring. You know, if folks don't want to work physically on this job site, there's going to be opportunities related to maybe you want to start a food truck that will help service some of the workers. Maybe you have a desire to be in healthcare, because there's going to be a number of healthcare opportunities that will probably be generated from this work. So there's a number of opportunities that are not directly related to the construction, but are spin-off and like I said, third level things that will be a result of this investment that we're making here.
Yeah, so I'm just saying I think that should be part of our conversation as we're just talking about what are the benefits of the bridge, and people are just looking at safety being an issue. It's more than that. There's lots of other opportunity for abled and disabled people.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you both, Greg and Pat, and definitely that is a very important point that we need to be thinking about. How do we talk about this and we make sure that we're talking about economic development from all different perspectives and all the opportunities that this program is really bringing to the regions. Thank you all. Are there any additional recommendations for us to ensure that you have the opportunity to give regular feedback or our process before we move on? Anything else that you would like to share? Alrighty. I don't see any hands, so I will pass it back to Dr. Hunt. I truly appreciate all your comments. We're taking them very seriously, very valuable insight today. Thank you, everyone.
I'm just kind of reflecting on some of the things that we've been raising, some concerns around safety, some concerns around what does it mean if we have if we have more access to each other on the different sides of the river. And, you know, I think about, I've only been in this region 20 something years, which, you know, if you're on the, at least on the Oregon side, they're kind of like, well, you're still a visitor. Like, so my children are from here. I'm around, but that sentiment of division between the Portland side and the Vancouver side is one that has been here for as long as I've been here. And that the work that's being done now is more, thank you for dinner, I feel like we're more integrated or more interdependent than we've ever been, is my feeling that I am experiencing. And I think that that's also contributed to us getting to this place that we are at in the project. And so I think part of the work of equity is uplifting the ways that we are interdependent, and the ways that we're stronger for that work. And I'm really hearing the need to lift that up and to really speak to that more consistently, which is great, as well as the need to debunk myths. It's a huge part of equity work as well, which is also dispelling fear. So, thanks.
So Dr. Hunt, if I can jump in real quick. Like I said, I grew up in the Detroit area. I lived in Detroit for on a couple of occasions during my life. And when a region does not see itself as a region, only bad things can happen from that. Detroit saw itself as Detroit, African-American city, and white suburbs. And for the past 50, 60 years, that has defined the success or the lack of success of what happens in that region. They are now just getting their heads wrapped around that. When folks hear Detroit, they don't think about Oakland County. They don't think about the city of Troy. They think of Detroit. You have to think of regionally, and this area is no different. And if they don't think regionally, bad things will happen. You know, folks said, well, we're Detroit. We got General Motors, we got Ford, we got Chrysler. And here folks say, well, we got Adidas, we got Nike, we got Intel. You don't think those things can change in a heartbeat if you're not thinking regionally? They can. So when folks talk about, you know, building a wall between Portland and Southwest Washington, it's one of the most short-sighted things. This bridge can help literally bridge the divide between this region and make this a stronger region. So I hate to wax philosophical, but I've lived through the damage that can happen when folks think so parochially that they can't see a bigger picture.
All right. Thank you, Greg. All right. So Salome, we are with you and community engagement.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for your questions. Last month, I did present to you all some of the data that we saw with our outreach for this first quarter. A lot of that was due to the work with our miniature grants. And so I thought I should come back this month, now that you've had time to look at that data and absorb it, and try to allow for more discussion on it if you all would like. And I also came with some questions as well to help start conversation. And so the questions that you can see on your screen are as followed. Do you have any feedback that you would like to add in response to the community engagement overview shared last month? What would be a helpful way to share information with you to be able to support and help get the word out about events? And any feedback that you would like to add in response to the community engagement overview shared last month? And what would be a helpful way to share information with you to be able to help support? And so these questions are really brought to just have conversation again, and to also hear from you all if the type of information feels right, or if there's other types of information you'd like us to consider gathering as we do more engagement and we get ready for doing engagement in the summer.
Salome, is there, as you are thinking about your work for the summer, what needs or gaps are you feeling, or are you having questions about?
I think it's more just trying to gather events as always. So I do appreciate, because I know many members of the EAG have already sent to me different events that are happening that they would like the program to consider tabling at. So we have a pretty good list, thanks to you all, as well as other advisory group members. It's just trying to make sure that as we are going to this another big time of engagement on the program by going to these events in the summer, that we are collecting information and sharing information in a way that members can find helpful or useful points to know. I know that this time last year, when I was speaking to you all had some great feedback about making sure that we're capturing demographic information when we do engagements and we have our events, and that's been incorporated into our work. I know that other folks specifically wanted to see more of the definition of equity and how that's being lived out through community engagement. And so we have questions on our registration as that event, asking folks if they belong to equity priority communities, making sure to use those definitions to I don't want to say track, but keep an eye out on, how diverse our events really are and the places that we're going to. So just looking to have conversation with folks about does the type of information we're collecting seem right? Is there things that you would like us to be mindful of as we go into this next phase with more tabling events and going to more of other events that are outside of IBR hosting? And then if there's any comments that folks want to add based off of what I shared with folks last month. Because I do know that sometimes it can be difficult to get the information and come up with the question right away or a comment right away. So.
Vicki.
I hate to be the one always talking, but the Prosper Portland just announced a grant program. I think it's titled Scale Up, and it's to encourage major events in the Portland metro, I guess, area that will attract, I think, a minimum of 2,500 people, and they want to grow it so that there are a lot of people who come from out of state and other places. And I think the deadline is in May, maybe. I'm not sure. I forget the deadline. But I wonder if there's a way of partnering with Prosper Portland on the projects they fund to maybe provide support for IBR to know about and table, not more than table, but be involved in those events. And they have a real focus on diversity. So I've been talking to the Vanport Jazz Festival. They plan to apply because they really fit that category. And but their actual announcements, I think, the events have to happen between a certain timeline of like June, early June to end of December.
Great. I will definitely look into that. Thank you, Vicki.
All right. Well, I think if people are good, then we'll move on.
Oh, sorry. We have two comments from, I think, Chandra and then Meg.
Great.
Vicki, first of all, I love your questions. Keep them coming. They make me a better practitioner in the work that I'm doing. So I thank you for that. But Salome, to your point of your questions, if you don't mind, one of them was what could you provide for us? I think we've already talked about kind of maybe reissuing those talking points for people. I'm sorry, Chandra Washington from CTRAN, make that really clear. We put information about the work that we're doing on the website all the time. And so maybe if there was something that we could put there and then that would then link someone to the page, because maybe they're not engaged with this work right now just because it's one of many things in our lives. But people sometimes go there and instead of using the transit app to engage with trying to figure out how to get their routes. And so it's just another way that we may be able to help with that. And that's very low impact for the work that we do. Then I think the other question, I'm sorry, let me see if I still have it up. Let me pull it up. I'll put my hand back up when I have another question.
Yeah.
She's got it up there. Okay. And what would be helpful, a helpful way for you to share that information? I think in the packet that we get, if you just had like flyers or something like that, because it's the busy event season for everyone. Thank you, Yamaya. And so we're already standing and we're tabling as well in different events. And so for someone to walk up and ask a question and say like, tell me a little more about it, that may be helpful. So I think it's just a good way to kind of strategize and use all these little people who are out doing all kinds of tabling to kind of lend a different, not necessarily a different face, but sometimes a different face helps. And sometimes just a different area. So you can't be everywhere at once. Let us help you.
Yeah, thank you, Chandra, for that comment, especially considering that we're looking at how to make a process to where advisory group members can join us at tabling events. I know that historically it's just been staff, but we're looking at a process to incorporate you all and have you table with us. And along with that, is obviously a briefing book would be needed in terms of like talking points and things like that. And so I can definitely get back to the team, the idea of just having one available and how do we share that information and the flyers too. I'll definitely take that back to the team.
I have a question. Oh, it was me again. No hand. Okay, so on the tabling events, I'm just thinking about the Urban League has their event coming up on Tuesday. And are you doing events like that? Because I know that that's targeted to construction, but I'm thinking IBR is still informing everybody of what's coming along. So are you doing events like that?
Yeah, that's a great question, Pat. So for events like the one the Urban League is doing, we have other team members, Jeanette and Yamaya, who go to workforce related type of events. And I know that they plan to go to some of those. And I know that Vicky has definitely sent me events for us to keep an eye on. And so our practice is try to be as many places as we can that we're informed about and know about. And so the answer to your question is yes. And we try to learn about them sooner rather than later so we can make sure that staff is equipped.
Okay, we'll send you a list of ours.
Sweet. Thank you.
Thank you. Meg?
Hi, Meg Johnson. I wonder two things. So I wonder what our outreach looks like beyond the immediate program area, if we're especially trying to reach out to people in North Clark County and even into Cowlitz County who commute using I-5. I know that there are lots of different events that go on throughout the summer. Even if you had a booth at the county fair, I know that seems disconnected, but there are a lot of folks that would be going to the county fair who would commute into Portland regularly. And then has there been any connection between the IBR program and BIA, the Building Industry Association of Clark County? Because that could be a good place also to table. I know that they have at least yearly, if not quarterly, events that you could speak at and speak to in that way.
Yeah, thank you, Meg, for the comment and also the question. To your comment, we do try to reach communities that are outside of the immediate program area. We did that a lot with our community-based organizations, especially with the larger orgs such as the Slavic Community Center of the Northwest, and also with NAMI, Southwest Washington, where, obviously their geographic area of support is bigger than the program area. And so we encourage them to share it with their membership widely because people do commute. I know that I have family members that commute from Tacoma quite frequently to come see me. So we definitely do care about the folks who use it to commute that are outside of the program area. And we definitely encourage them to share that information. And I will say that in regards to this specific one that you mentioned, we as a community engagement team, we have not, but I do think that the program has, and I think that we'll definitely look at how to get that, because one of the things that we heard from our community-based organizations and the events that we did there was, the program offers presentations to groups, and oftentimes we'll tell groups like, hey, we can do a presentation for you, but one of the community members pointed out that we don't have that anywhere on the website of like where to ask for a presentation or a form that folks who fill out to get one. So we're working on things like that. and incorporating that feedback to make ourselves more accessible and as welcoming as possible. And I do think that all the comments here, I definitely will bring it back to the team, figure out how to work on them, and then close the feedback loop and report back out to you all what we find. I do know that we will continue to try to capture, continue capturing demographic information as we're going out to these events. And, we also have interaction summaries that we do for every event that we have, where we write down comments, questions, things that came up in conversation with folks. And so I'm not sure if there's an interest from folks here of like what people are actually saying and not just where we're going, and the conversations that were had. But yeah, just want to make sure that we're moving into the summer with intention and getting your opinion now before we start versus halfway through or later.
So, Salome, there is one thing that is coming up, and Oregon Tradeswomen does this huge fair every year. And everybody comes because this is a youth fair and they do it for a couple of days. Do you have that on your radar?
It is on my radar now and on my list.
We have it. Yes, we have it for workforce. That's one of the events that we're planning, hopefully, on attending.
Okay, because I was going to say, if you need a contact, that is a good one to reach a lot of kids, because all of the pre-apprenticeship training programs support that, and they have a huge turnout. They've been doing it for years. It's a big deal.
Thank you, Pat.
You're welcome. And then I'll send you other ones, but that's coming up.
Great. So Dr. Hunt, I'll turn it back to you. I got a lot of good comments and I will try to see what I can incorporate.
Great. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. All right. So Emily, if you will talk to us about the Community Benefits Advisory Group.
Yes, thank you, everyone. I'm excited to be here to give an update on the great work that the committee is doing. And first, I want to give a shout out to Vicky, who is our EAG representative on the CBAG and always gives really great input and does a great job of representing this group. So really appreciate you and all of your great feedback that you share, Vicky. And then also want to thank our program partners who have been working with us on some of our asset mapping conversations. They've been really valuable. So just really appreciate folks' time. So yes, I'm just going to give a quick overview of what the group has covered so far, and then a little bit of a preview of what will be coming up on the horizon. So in the first couple of meetings in September and October of last year, we did some of the foundational work of adopting a charter and some of the roles and responsibilities of the group. But then after that, we really dug into the meat of things, which was having visioning conversations and exercises around what could the program area look like when construction is complete? What do folks want to see as outcomes in their communities? And this is the same exercise that the EAG did as well as the CAG. And so we really pulled that together. Next slide, please. So as a quick reminder for some framing here, the program envisions that community benefits will land in kind of different buckets within the program, since there isn't going to be a formal community benefits agreement. So that will be in pieces, aspects like environmental documents, contract specifications, potential workforce provisions, and then maybe some third-party agreements. And so as the group began kind of visioning some of their potential community benefits that they wanted to put forward, there were some that we identified as being more time sensitive, given some of these different places they needed to land, right? So some might have needed to be in environmental documents or as considered as part of contract specifications. So they really needed to be kind of at the front of this group's work. And so in December, January, they really worked through that and kind of identifying those time-sensitive benefits. And then they voted to confirm those in January and February. And so now that they've kind of moved through those pieces, we've gone into going through the different categories that the benefits will show up in. And so in March, we started with workforce equity and economic opportunity. Next slide, please. And so as another reminder, The community benefits are categorized based on the equity objectives that are found in the equity framework. And so the group is going to be going through mobility and accessibility this month. They'll go through community benefits the following month, and then avoid further harm in June. Next slide, please. Sorry, just a quick moment. I got a little bit of a dry throat here. And so we wanted to be sure that we brought back this first batch of the those time-sensitive recommendations that the group voted on. Next slide, please. And so under this, under the category of mobility and accessibility, we had connect to transit service improvements, create bicycle amenities, create pedestrian safety measures, such as speed bumps and signs, provide adequate bicycle signage and enhance wayfinding, both during construction and after program for safety enhancement in local communities, use universal design, and be radically inclusive. Next slide, please. Continuing in mobility and accessibility, we had create accessible trails and networks with lighting for safety, balance with considerations for ecosystem health, with a note here that the program will explore accessibility needs with people with disabilities and groups serving them, as well as non-car using groups. Next was to create efficient public transit to key locations, integrating design elements to improve user experience. Design active transportation facilities to create a comfortable, low-stress experience, prioritizing the safety of vulnerable users and providing convenient access from the local network to new facilities. Consideration for cost analysis for financial and feasible implementation, and that the design team will communicate and follow up with the CBAG about design choices and the rationale behind them. Next slide, please. Under the category of physical design, the recommendations were to create designs that prioritize preservation and enhancement of natural features, focusing on the views both from and towards the bridge, while working within the constraints of the bridge structure to maintain structural integrity and safety. This will include viewpoints or designated areas for cyclists and pedestrians on the bridge to enhance their experience and safety. Use anti-graffiti designs in the program area and incorporate new technology as it is developed. Explore mitigation strategies to reduce highway noise for pedestrians, cyclists, local businesses, residents, and all bridge users. Use material options that are sustainable and environmentally friendly, balancing decisions to use low carbon materials, costs, and life of materials into the program design, including local elements. Examples could include ash and shells, and then consider other emissions or outputs as well. Next was to create green spaces throughout the program area and use native plants to enhance ecological benefits. Connect the local community within the program area, including Evergreen Boulevard, Hayden Island, Marine Drive, and the waterfront. Define community connectors near Evergreen and the waterfront. Next slide. Continuing with physical design, incorporate both active transportation facilities and green space throughout the program area. Implement east-west connectivity and accessibility within the program area. Coordinate salvage existing bridge elements for public display. Integrate art and local history and culture into the bridges and program area designs at various scales to enhance its aesthetic appeal and connection to the community, creating a distinct and iconic bridge. Consider design with an eye towards ice and other severe weather conditions, designs that honor the contributors to the program, the bridge construction, including designer and builders, include accountability to ensure that various contractors are adhering to aesthetic and design specifications to create consistent design throughout the program area. Consider where there is an opportunity for a welcome center that will include a curated display of the history of the region, approved materials, photo documentation of the existing bridge, and salvage plaques from the existing bridge, and to consider where there is an opportunity to explore a truck inspection facility. Next slide, please. Under the category community benefits, This one's a little bit confusing, but it's really meant to be kind of a category where maybe the other benefits that aren't quite captured well in other categories, this is the one that's intended for that. So the recommendations here were create riverfront public access points and provide recreational opportunities, communal and open space, including areas for fishing and hiking on both sides of the river where feasible. And explore partnership options with Metro regarding the Expo Center. Be sure to acknowledge, understand, and honor the significance of this location and honor the work already done to develop plans for this site. Transit-oriented development and prioritize innovative developments on the land adjacent to the bridge with a focus on projects that promote accessible and affordable housing. Lots of reading, hold on just a second. Under avoid further harm, establish systems for continuous monitoring of noise, dust, vibration, and air quality during program construction to mitigate impacts to homes, businesses, and other properties. Pre-construction conditions will be measured to use as a baseline for monitoring. Provide a publicly accessible community benefits dashboard showing progress on all community benefits, proposals, and projects. Require contractors to arrange off-street parking for their site employees where feasible and reasonable. Mitigate noise and dust impacts to homes and businesses prior to and during construction. Limit closure of sidewalks, bike lanes, and bus lanes near construction sites to minimize impacts on non-motorized transit. And work with highly impacted residents to determine mitigations during construction, such as installation of sound and dust-proof windows in a timely fashion before construction begins, and hotel vouchers for the noisiest overnight operations if noise levels are exceeded. And so continuing with avoid further harm, set up portable speed monitoring on adjacent neighborhoods, create a process to monitor volumes and speeds on local streets within the program area, and when warranted per local traffic code, install speed bumps or tables to address safety during construction, establish challenging electric vehicle or low emissions requirements as part of contract documents, explore opportunities for renewable diesel and incentives, retrofit diesel construction vehicles, or require the use of renewable diesel where feasible and reasonable to curb air pollution prior to the start of construction, incentivize the installation of electric charging stations in the construction zone for contractor use to meet EV requirements. These charging stations are to be placed so that they may become convenient public facilities after construction is complete and ongoing operations and ownership is determined. And finally, install electric lines in advance of the start of construction to avoid future disruption for charging stations. Lots of reading, had a little dry mouth there. So as just a refresher, those are that first time sensitive batch of the recommendations or the benefits that the group put forward. That does not represent all of the potential benefits that are going to be considered as part of this process in each of those categories. So that's really, we wanted to make sure that we brought that back for that feedback loop for transparency for this group and to see if you have any questions or feedback.
And maybe before we jump in there, just a reminder, you'll notice the arc of the material. It follows the equity framework that this group and body has created. Sabrina, to your earlier point, and we've been really intentional with that, right? Otherwise, you sort of have a framework that sits on the shelf, but doesn't actually get operationalized throughout. So maybe before we open up the questions, I'd like to yield maybe to just Vicky with any thoughts as well as impressions serving on that body that you might have.
Well, it's been an honor to be part of that group. I appreciate the fact that it moves between Vancouver and Portland, and that Mingus Maps and Mayor Ann are there and engaged and willing to take back information and contribute information. There are a number of organizational representatives that are in positions where, you know, their organizations can adapt as this goes forward. So I appreciate the work that's gone on, and I haven't been on the committee a real long time, but I am impressed with what's come out of the work so far. And I don't know, it really wasn't, I have to say, when the Secretary of Transportation came to Oregon and Washington, that was so inspiring to me that he would come and visit and engage with the IRB and take tours. I remember him interviewing for one of the television stations, and he talked about how standing on the bridge, he felt it move and he didn't think it should quite move so much. And I was so impressed that he was, and I have to say, he was so engaged in the outcome that, and interested in what Oregon and Washington were doing and the level of cooperation between these two states. So that's my comment.
Yeah, and if I can uplift a couple of things too before we open, I really appreciate that, Vicki. And I also wanted to point out that I hope that some of you see some of the ideas that we've discussed as an equity group, even when we were talking about like key performance indicators, some of these ideas that I remember the EAG having conversations around, we're seeing them show up in these community benefits that have already been put forward. So just again, appreciation for this group and the work that's already been done. And then I also wanted to share a little bit of context too that might help in case folks have some questions around the process. And so how the workflow of this group is laid out is that for each of those categories that we mentioned, we'll have an initial touch point with the group. So those are the next few months that you'll see. We'll have a brainstorming session where the advisory group members will have kind of their open discussion where they're giving all the ideas. And then the second time when we return to each of the categories, that's when we'll have more of a refinement conversation where we'll dig into the details. And in the meantime, the IBR program teams are going to be doing some of the analysis and the assessment behind the scenes to kind of look at, you know, what are potential funding streams, maybe grant possibilities, some of the asset mapping conversations, what can partners bring to help implement some of these, and also some of the guardrails and understanding what might be feasible, what might be out of the scope, so that we can bring all of that back and that folks can refine that. And then the final touch point is when folks will, they will confirm their recommendations, and those will all be then delivered to the program.
So maybe if we can stay here for about maybe 3 or 4 more minutes and then move to Malin with the transit station design. Sabrina.
Hi, Sabrina from Metro. One, I want to appreciate Vicki. Thank you so much for serving on this committee and being the bridge from the EAG to the, I don't like CBAG, but the Community Benefits Advisory Group acronym. And to the IBR team for doing this work. I think that, as we said, like we're trying to do so many new things in this project. And just seeing the, you know, I've been around community benefits agreements and processes for a while. And, you know, it's about moving beyond that idea that just building the thing is a community benefit. It is really an example of like when we actually stop and flesh out what that means for community to truly benefit, how broad and impactful that benefit really can be. So it's great to see this coming to life and has been a key priority for my engagement in this effort. And also want to acknowledge the connection to the equity framework. I think that a key component of I think why community benefits agreements have been so important to community is that accountability piece, that clear line of this was what a community asked, and knowing like where it's inserted into a project and it's there. And so, and I know that we're getting there, and I look forward to kind of seeing the lines, the dots connected from kind of the some of the values and vision that is evident in that set of recommendations to where community is going to be able to look and see that in the structure of the project. So I'm looking forward to continuing to see this develop and figuring out the different ways that we all as partners can support this work moving forward.
Thank you. Thank you, Sabrina. I'm going to move us forward now. So we're going to go to Malin and the transit station design discussion. Malin and Ben.
Yeah, and Ben is not able to join us, but Steve is here, and I think we are obviously, these meetings have so much content that we always end up going long, and so I want to really be respectful for the magnitude of what this discussion really needs to be. And so we're here to answer follow-up questions. We presented some information in the last few meetings, and it was felt that we didn't have enough time, I think, to really get into some of the issues. And so I think the plan was on the agenda to go through the same presentations from two different meetings and continue to kind of collect feedback, because we didn't have enough time. And now I see that we're again running over. So I don't know, does anybody have any thoughts about the best way to use our remaining time here? I don't want to talk on and try to re-present information. If people have reviewed it and have questions, we can just take those questions. But I also respect that this is, it's such a complex thing that it's sometimes hard to know what sort of questions to ask. So with that, I'll just leave it on the floor there for some maybe guidance. So should I attempt to walk through the waterfront and Hayden Island stations with the time we have left? We have a few. Well, we're already into the next time frame. So.
Well, I think, please. Sorry. I think that's fine. I think a question, do we have anyone signed up for public comment?
No public comments as of yet, no.
Okay.
All right, so let's go for about 10 minutes. We'll check in about public comment and we'll see where we are.
Okay, great. Appreciate it. So,
and we did email the presentations for the last 2 months for Hayden in Vancouver. So I don't have the map, but what I have up is the questions and the equity objectives. So if you want, I can put the map again so we can remind as you talk through it. Would you like me to do that? Just share it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, let's start with the just the overview slides for so with waterfront first. That was, you listed that first, I believe, on your agenda, right? So maybe go to slide 22.
Oh, sorry. Give me just a second here. '22, right? Okay.
Yeah, it's sort of the diagram of the overarching site plan.
Let if you can see it. Oh, it didn't allow me to. I'll just move to the slide.
It's page 22. I don't know if it's slide 22. Sometimes they.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the one.
This is the one.
So as we presented before, in the long continuity of this project, the word design can be sort of precarious, and even concept or is a little bit where we are now with the project is really three elements related to the transit station that is located in the orange. It's at, essentially somewhere in the red dashed line and represented by the orange rectangle. And so the three elements, first is the location, and then it's the configuration of the station and then it's the program related to that, and they're all intertwined. So there are a lot of things influencing where the station can be, and our role really as the transit design team is trying to make sure that the station's in the place where it best serves what already exists, while also serving what is planned to happen in the future. So that's really the location thing. And we're currently located, so this is north is about up, and this is just as the current bridge or the future bridge will land on the Vancouver side. So it's called the Vancouver Waterfront Station. We're looking straight down at a plan drawing. And so, as a lot of you may know, the areas in purple, a lot of those are already built out. And so the station in this location is generally intended to serve both the existing downtown core as well as the future expansion of the station. And as such, it needs to use the structure from the bridge as it comes across, and then that structure peels off and to do what it needs to do to get into where it needs to go and around all the other pieces. What's really unique about this station is that because it's coming off the bridge, it needs to be pretty high up in the ground, or pretty high above the ground, which is unusual for not only stations for the TriMet system, but stations all across the country. There really aren't very many this tall. So that's one major consideration we're going to be interested in talking to this group and a lot of the groups and about the issues related to that. We as transit designers are always thinking about how we can make riders feel invited, comfortable, and safe within each context, which is all a little bit different. The program elements related to it are, there will be bus stations, bus stops. Both the local C-Tran service will be here, and one of the Vine BRT stops will be here. So the entrances need to be configured to make that really convenient and easy to use. And there's also going to be bicycle facilities that engaged here. And the little curly Q of the teal color, that sort of graphically illustrates the challenge of the bikes that are coming across on the shared use path, and people walking as well, able to get down to the level below there without using elevators. The station itself will definitely have elevators. It's at a high enough elevation that actually most people will probably be using elevators. So I want to give people time to ask some questions for things that I may not have been clear. Things we should think about. Not even things that Steve can tell me I forgot to mention.
Well, Malin, I'll just say, and I think you've said it, but just to clarify, there's no decisions have been made, no final designs have been made. We're showing that red dotted box because we're not not nailed down on a specific location here. There's room for that location to shift around within that whole block there, south of BNSF. That's just, so what's just shown is just an example of where it could be.
And currently the thinking is there will be an entrance, a place to get up to the platform at both ends of the orange rectangle, wherever that orange rectangle shifts to. And the things we're already thinking about is on the southern portion, there's going to be, it appears to be in a lot of visibility. So it's right, you know, the entrance will be right near the corner of Columbia Way, West Columbia Way, and Columbia Street. And that's where the buses are going to interchange that make the most sense there. The northern entrance is closer to downtown in many ways. However, because it's further away from Columbia Street, we really have to think when we design it how to work a little bit harder to make sure the entrance is visible. There's going to be that this diagram isn't really related to the traffic patterns, but Phil Arnold Way, if you can see, is going to continue and actually be in a easterly direction there and sort of serve as an on-ramp onto SR 14. So that traffic will tend to want to be going faster. And so those are giving you an example of the things we will be thinking about, and certainly coming back to this group when we get to the appropriate time with for comments and observations for things that we may be missing.
So can I ask a question? You mentioned that if you need to get up, it's quite high. So most people will take an elevator, but is it the bicycles that would have to walk up to? Well,
So,
I mean, that would be kind of a trip to get up there.
well, that is a very good question. The bicycles on the train, it will have to do with the size of elevators. There has to be one of we're recommending at this point 2 elevators at each entrance, because unlike most stations where most riders walk upstairs if there's a little bit of grade or a ramp, almost everybody will take the elevator here. So that will raise the question of bikes and how TriMet wants to handle accommodating bikes on the train and in the elevators and all the facilities, because it adds another complication to that.
Malin, you are planning on, oh, sorry, I was just going to say you are planning on providing bike storage and
yeah. So if we
nearby.
maybe go to the next slide, and the next one, maybe we can have one that and one more. This is an example that of one of several different configurations for the station in this location. I suppose I should, yeah, let's go to one more slide, because I think we're sort of and another concept B. There we go. This is this is one concept for having the configuration of a center platform. And so where the number 2 is and where the number 1 is, those are the 2 entrances. And I'll ask indulgence for one more slide, one more move ahead. So this is really what people are going to see at the grades. Again, this is a plan drawing. North is to the right from what you saw before, so everything shifted a little bit. And so these drawings are used to start to have the conversation about the program elements. Most of them we think we have a good handle, but how much space they actually take is a question, and which relates to how much space is both available and the geometry of the streets. But to get to your question, yeah, we will have bike storage is a primary program component for each entrance. Now, how much bike storage, whether it's just a bike rack or whether it's secure storage, or if the station's expected to be very busy, some places actually have what they call a bike station, where there's people there, they maybe work on your bike. there's maybe more secure storage.
So I just want to check on public comment. Is there anyone? No. So we can go here for about 2 more minutes and then we need to move on and come back again.
Yeah.
And I think it was Soko and then Meg that had questions.
I may have missed this, and I know we're running low on time, but what were the plans on also including escalators?
So the challenge with escalators is they have to be weather protected and to be reliable. That's sort of we've talked, and for the height that we're going to be at, it's going to take quite a while to get up there. So nothing has been decided for certain yet, but generally it's seen that given the number of riders for this station, because this station isn't expected to have a very, all that high ridership, that elevators are probably the better way to serve the station.
Meg?
Hi, Malin. As someone who works right around the corner from this, I want to make sure that we're talking about the walking, rolling infrastructure as well, not only just the station, but currently where these are, they're not well trafficked by individual people without cars. So I think we really have to make a really intense improvement to the walkability and rollability of this corridor when we're talking also about the station. I would just appreciate that going forward. I know these are really rudimentary in terms of really not having details yet, but like these specific areas, especially Phil Arnold Way going down to 3rd, like hardly anybody walks there. So we have to really talk about what that looks like in the future.
Thank you. Thank you. So we have 3 minutes left. So I'm gonna pivot, Malin.
Sure.
Thank you, everyone. Can we have the public comment slides?
Yes. Oh, no.
I always think with meetings, except non-closure. And that is true today too. All right, comment instructions. Through Zoom, please use the link located in the meeting description on the YouTube meeting page or on the IBR EAG meeting webpage. Comments will be allowed to turn on their webcams, but will not be allowed to share their screens and will be removed from the room once the public comment period concludes. By phone, dial 253-215-8782, meeting ID 986-0940-5983, passcode 701376. Dial *9 to raise your hand. Dial *6 to unmute yourself. The facilitator will call on participants to provide comment. Please provide your name and affiliation. Commenters will be given 2 minutes to speak. Next slide.
I want to watch TV.
Okay, go do that. Comment instructions. To submit comment after the meeting, fill out the comment form on the program website or email your comments to info@interstatebridge.org with EAG Public Comment in the subject line. Call 888-503-6735 and state EAG Public Comment in your message. All written comments must be received prior to 48 hours in advance of each upcoming meeting in order to be distributed to advisory group members. Comments received after that point will be distributed to members in advance of their next meeting. All right, do we have any folks for public comment?
No, we don't have any. Or yes, go ahead, Yamaya.
All right, so if we can have our poll and move towards our closing, which is we'll do 2 takeaways today. 2 takeaways from our time together. Sabrina.
My takeaway is just appreciation for the team continuing to check in with us on how how this work and committee is going. It's been, I don't think I knew that I was signing up for, what is it, year 3 now? At the very beginning. And I think the continued effort to make sure the space is still working is appreciated, and it's a good practice. So thank you.
Excellent. One more takeaway. Vicki.
I think the transit station design discussion is pretty important, and I know we kind of shortchanged it last time. I don't know how we maybe devote more time to it at another time, because I think it's important that we understand that issue.
Yeah, thank you. All right, so friends, we will be back here May 20th, 5:30 to 7:30. And also mark your calendar, June 17th, 5:30 to 7:30. All right, so I will see you and thank you. All the best.
Thank you, everyone.
Mm-hmm.